Good morning and welcome to the 2024 Lifesavers Rally. My name is Harbur, and I am a senior at North Kansas City High School and a youth advisory member for Gift of Life. I am passionate about organ, eye, and tissue donation because in the 4th grade, my dad received a life-saving liver transplant. Without an organ donor, my dad would not have survived, but he is alive today and I am grateful for the gift of life that he received. Welcome to those of you who have not attended before, and welcome back to the schools who have embraced this special event as tradition. Thank you to the sponsors and community partners for their generous financial support and over 20 volunteers who are donating their time to make this event successful. We will break for lunch at approximately 11, and after lunch we will convene in the auditorium and conclude with our final speaker. Please silence your phones at this time. Today, you will listen to Dr. Matt Wilkinson as he shares why he became a transplant surgeon. Then you will experience Eddie's emotional journey towards receiving a heart transplant, and his daughter Lauren will join him as they tell his story. Next, you will imagine having only 90 days to live without a transplant. This is Kahyley's story. And finally, you will hear Sylvia share what it's like to become a donor mother after the loss of her son, Chris. Today, you will be educated about organ, eye, and tissue donation, and you'll be inspired by stories of triumph and stories of loss. And you'll be encouraged to talk about donation with a loved one, because the conversation matters. Backed by popular demand, our first speaker is Dr. Matt Wilkinson. Dr. Wilkinson is a transplant surgeon at St. Luke's Health System and moved to Kansas City in 2019. He has a passion for transplants and a deep respect for organ donors and their families. When operating on an organ donor or an organ recipient, Dr. Wilkinson makes special time with his entire staff of the operating room to show appreciation and acknowledgement of the life of the donor and the special gift that will be received by a recipient. When he isn't working, he enjoys traveling with his husband Marco, taking care of his saltwater fish tank, and playing with his cats, Tiger, Luna, Gigi, and Mochi. After Dr. Wilkinson concludes, there will be time for a few questions. Please welcome Dr. Matt Wilkinson.
All right, can you guys hear me okay? All right, good morning, nice to see you. They have to add to that, I also like riding my motorcycle. That's why I have these pants and these boots on. So you can be a surgeon and ride a motorcycle, it is okay. So it's nice to see you guys this morning. I am a transplant surgeon. All those letters behind my name, I went to school to be a medical doctor, so that's 4 years. I did a PhD, which is another 3 years, and then the last ones have to do with it is the American College of Surgeons. We can take a look at the next slide. In order to get to where I am now, I am 41. I was in school for 18 years after I graduated from high school. So I was born in Colorado and lived there for a few years. And then I went to Connecticut for a few years, and then I grew up in South Carolina. I was there and I went to undergrad there, so that was 4 years. I decided to do an MD and a PhD, which was an additional 7 years. I started in Texas, and then I finished in Mount Sinai, which is in New York City. And then I did my residency in general surgery. So when you finish medical school, you don't know what specialty you're going to do. You might do medicine, you might do endocrinology, you might do surgery. There's lots of things you can do after you finish medical school. And so I did general surgery, which is another 5 years. And then to do transplant surgery, that's an additional 2 years. So I went to the hospital at the University of Pennsylvania for 2 years to do that. And then after that, I came here to Kansas City, and I work at St. Luke's Health System, and I'm one of the transplant surgeons there. I do liver and kidney transplants. The training for abdominal transplant is different from thoracic transplant. So if you get a heart or a lung transplant, that's by somebody who went through a different pathway, learning how to do thoracic surgery rather than abdominal surgery. Okay. Any questions about that? If you do have questions, you can raise your hand in between. I'll be happy to repeat them and answer them. There'll also be some time for some questions at the end. How many people do you think are waiting for an organ transplant? Like, why do I have a job? How many people might be waiting for an organ? A lot, yes, that's a good number. How many do you think it is? How many? Thousands? Raise your hand for me and then tell me. Yeah.
104,000.
All right, you guys have got the one you can read. I'm going to tell the state of Missouri you guys are good to go on your yearly test. Good there. So it's 104,000. the vast majority of those people are waiting for kidney transplants. Kidney transplant is the most common transplant that we do in this country. It's probably on the order of around 20, 25,000, things like that. So kidney transplants certainly are the most common transplants we do. Liver is the second most common, followed by pancreas. You can do a kidney and a pancreas together. It's often done for people with diabetes. Most adults in this country who are transplanted for a kidney have either high blood pressure or diabetes. That is generally the cause of kidney failure. Children can also have kidney failure for a variety of reasons. Those tend to be more things like genetic reasons. Liver transplants used to be most common for hepatitis C. There is actually treatment now and a cure for hepatitis C. So most liver transplants nowadays are actually done either for alcoholic liver disease or due to fatty liver. So as you know, as you may or may not know, there's an increased rate of obesity in the country, and that causes an increased rate in liver scarring and cirrhosis. There are also heart transplants, lung transplants, intestinal transplants. Some things that are coming along, there are also people who have had face transplants. You might see that in the news. That's much less common. Some women have undergone uterine transplants. Those are quite uncommon, but those are done so that those women can bear children. That's really probably more on the horizon, but it has been done. Probably about 70 total children have been born from that. And so all in all, about 104,000 people. But that's a day-to-day change. So if someone gets transplanted today, if I go do a kidney transplant this afternoon, that person comes off the list. But then when we meet in our committee tomorrow and talk about all the people that have come through the clinic, those people are going to get added to the list. And the problem is we don't have enough organs for everybody that wants one, right? So I can't go down to Target or Walmart or wherever it is you want to go and get a kidney or get a liver. So people have to wait. Unfortunately, not everybody can wait long enough. So there are people that die while they're waiting for an organ. Their organs fail. How many people a day do you think that might be? 100? Not quite that high. So it's 17. There are 17 people in this country every day that die waiting for an organ. So either they succumb to their disease, something else happens, they get to a point that they're not able to be transplanted. And so that's why it's so important to talk about being an organ donor, because the vast majority of the places we can't, like I said, we can't go and pick up an organ. The organs come from people that choose to donate their organs. And in this country, organ donation is an opt-in system. Basically, you make a choice to be an organ donor. Usually it's done, they'll ask you at the DMV, do you want to be an organ donor? And then they put that little heart on your license, and that means you've chosen you want to be an organ donor. The systems in other countries are very different. In most European countries, it's actually generally an opt-out system. So the system is set up whereby everyone is assumed to be an organ donor unless they say that they don't want to be an organ donor. And there's a variety of reasons they may choose not to do that. So this is a picture in the operating room. I'm there on the left. The gentleman on the right is one of my surgical mentors. And you can see that when we're sewing in an organ, you can't just sort of put it in there and hope that it works. You've got to sew it into something. And interestingly, every organ is a little bit different. So when we do a kidney transplant, you may or may not know, your kidneys are up here in your back by your bottom rib. You got one on each side. Okay, so you have 2 kidneys. They last as long as they last. We don't put the new kidney in the same place. You guys know where we put the kidney? Down here. The new kidney actually goes down here at the bottom of the abdomen. So we actually sew the new kidney into the blood vessels that go into the leg. It's much closer to the bladder, and the kidney works just fine. You can put the kidney in upside down. It'll still do its job. It doesn't have any problem with that. So that's called a heterotopic transplant because we put it in a different location. Other organs, like the liver or the heart, have to be put in the same place. So if I'm doing a liver transplant, your liver is your biggest internal organ. It's a big triangle is what I tell my patients. It kind of goes from here all the way up and across back to here. It's the biggest internal organ you have. You know what your biggest organ is? Your skin, exactly. All right. So your liver is your biggest internal organ. The old liver has to be taken out first in order to put the new liver in. Similar for heart, similar for lungs. Those are called orthotopic transplants because they're put in the same location. So on the right is a diagram, and on the left is a picture of an actual kidney. That kidney does not yet have blood in it, and I know that because it looks like a piece of chicken breast. Normally kidneys, when they have blood in your body, they will look pinkish to purple. That's normal because they're perfused with blood. And your kidneys weigh about 1 pound. You have 2 of them, so if you think of your total body weight, 2 pounds of your body weight is your kidneys. They get 20 to 25% of the blood supply from the heart every minute. That's how much filtration they're doing. Your brain is another 3 pounds, it gets another 20 to 25%. So you've got 5 pounds of organs, your brain and 2 kidneys, that are basically getting 50% of what your heart puts out every minute. When you put the kidney in, you can see up there on the top right, the kidneys you're born with, again, are up here in the back. We do the transplant in your lower abdomen. It can be done on the right, it can be done on the left. It doesn't make a bit of difference. And we sew it into the side of the blood vessels going into the leg. What I tell the patients, it's kind of like adding an exit to the interstate. The blood can still go down into the leg, but now some of that blood gets into the kidney. We plug the ureter into the bladder. The ureter is the tube that carries urine from the kidney to the bladder. You guys are probably too young to remember this, but back in the 90s, when you had to plug things into your VCR, there were these red, white, and yellow cables you had to do to plug things into an old school TV. You guys are probably way too young for this. Everything's wireless now. Kidneys are kind of like that. They come with the 3 tubes. You plug them in and they work. Okay? It's the same idea. The kidneys come with the artery, vein, and the ureter that need to be reconnected in order to put them into place. Now, a liver is a little different. So if you look at the picture on the left there, like I said, your liver is your biggest internal organ. And your liver has 2 big functions in your body if you think about it. It's like a big factory. It has synthetic functions. It makes lots of proteins. It makes all your clotting factors. It's a huge production place. It's also a clearance place. Most things that your body takes in get cleared through the liver. So if you take a medication, most of the time that's cleared through the liver. And so that's why it's so important and why things like alcohol and viral diseases can destroy it. Now to put a new liver in, you have to take the old one out. There's different ways to do that, but the location where you put it is the same, and that's what the diagram on the right is showing you. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but you do have to put it in the same location. That's what a liver looks like. That's about the size of a human liver, so it's bigger on the right side than on the left side, and all of the vessels around on the back. So that would be what it looked like if you made an incision on someone's abdomen. That's what the liver would look like from the front. A couple new things I want to tell you about before I give you guys a chance to ask any questions is, so what do we do if we don't have enough organs, right? There's not enough organs for everybody that wants one. So you may have seen on the news some things that are coming up is the ability to engineer organs, right? So to actually grow them in the lab. Do you guys know, or does anybody know what the biggest issue with that is? With growing organs in the lab?
Stem cells?
So you said stem cells. What do you mean by that?
Getting them in a more way.
Okay, good. Yeah, so getting them in the way you need them. So scientists have figured out how to take a stem cell. A stem cell is one of the original cells in your body. It can turn into anything. It's kind of like when you're a kid, you're trying to figure out what you want to do in life. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do in life when I'm 41. But it can turn into any kind of cell. We know how to turn a cell into a nephron, which is the functioning unit of the kidney. We know how to do that. The problem is we don't know how to make it grow the arteries and veins and the ureters we need to make it plug in. You can't just throw those cells in there. So that's part of the issue. The other thing that's being worked on is the last thing, which is xenotransplantation. So every cell in your body, other than a few, have things on their surface that say they belong to you. Okay, so that's how you fight off bad things. Your immune system says, hey, this doesn't belong here. I know that I need to fight off this bacteria. I know I need to fight off this virus. Your immune system also knows if tissue is put in your body that doesn't belong to you. So one of the biggest issues we deal with in transplant is if I were to donate a kidney to somebody, unless they're my identical twin, so their immune system is going to be the same, their immune system is going to attack that organ. It is going to attack it and say, this can't stay here, and that organ will die. That's the reason organ transplant didn't really become very feasible until about the 70s when we developed medications that can suppress the immune system. So people that have had organ transplants are actually at higher risk to get infections. They're actually immunosuppressed at baseline because we have to prevent their immune system from attacking them. Yes, your question? Okay. So the question was, do we have a way to make the immune systems weaker? We do. And so that's immunosuppression. Now, You may have also seen some things in the news where they were taking kidneys from pigs. They did one in Maryland and they did one in New York, and they put them into a human. Different animals are good, different models for looking at humans. Pig kidneys are relatively similar to human kidneys, so a lot of studies on kidneys are done in pigs. And what they did is they genetically modified these pigs so that the surfaces of their cells would not say, I'm from a pig. They're basically in camouflage. The immune system can't see them. They don't know that they're there. And so that's part of what is trying to be done, is if you could engineer organs or develop organs that did not activate the immune system, you wouldn't have to put people on immunosuppressants. Because one of the funny things about them, just a second, is that the most common medication we use for immunosuppression, which is called tacrolimus, is actually hard on the kidneys in the long term. And you'll see people get a kidney, keep it for 7 to 10 years, and they've done everything they're supposed to, but that medicine may end up hurting in the long term because it upsets the kidney, and they end up losing the kidney after to be retransplanted. Yes?
So like, you like feel a difference after the transplant?
The question was, do you feel a difference after the transplant? Absolutely 100%. So depending on the organ that you transplant, you could be somebody, it depends on the organ you get. So if you're somebody who has kidney failure, what do we do if someone has kidney failure? Do they die? No, what do? We put them on dialysis, right? Dialysis is a machine that replaces kidney function. Patients do not like it. Most people do hemodialysis, which means in their bloodstream, they have to go to a center 3 days a week, sit there for 4 hours at a time, and sit on this machine that filters the blood. It makes them very tired, they don't feel good, it does not replace all the functions of the kidney. It keeps the blood clean, and it keeps the patient alive, but it certainly doesn't make them feel better. If you want to hear a crazy statistic, if you take everybody in this country who starts dialysis this year, how many of them do you think will be dead in 5 years? What percentage? 50%. People do not live a long time on dialysis. So, to your question though, do they feel better? Absolutely. It's funny, you make a big incision on somebody's belly. So a kidney transplant incision is like this. It's like a backwards J almost, like this, because you got to get down behind the intestines. A liver transplant incision is underneath both of your ribs, maybe up to your breastbone. To do a heart transplant, you're talking about a midline sternotomy, which is cutting through your breastbone from top to bottom. They ratchet open your chest in order to put this new heart in. These people feel better than they've felt in their whole lives. They go home on not any pain meds, things like that. We know what the organs do at baseline, but some of the other things in terms of making them feel better, it's amazing how much better they do after they're transplanted. Absolutely. Other questions? Yes? How do I approach a transplant? A partial transplant, like from a living donor? Okay, so you can do living donor transplants. So one of the important things is normally we get organs from deceased donors. That is the most common source of getting them. You can get organs from a living donor. You do have 2 kidneys. You don't need 2 kidneys to live. When we do a transplant on someone, we only give them 1 kidney, correct? And that's enough to keep them off dialysis. So if your 2 kidneys work well, and you would like to be an organ donor, you get worked up, they make sure it's good, and then we come in and we talk to them, and if someone wants to be an organ donor and they're otherwise medically healthy, they can then choose to donate a kidney, and the other kidney will do about 70% of the function in the long term. So each kidney does about 50%. When you take out one, you immediately cut kidney function in half. That other kidney figures out, hey, I'm the only one doing anything anymore, and it'll pick up to about 70%. Now what's really wild is your liver, you can also do living donor liver transplants. The liver is the only organ in the body that regenerates. So you can go in and someone who's otherwise healthy, you can take up to 70% of their liver. You can take that out, the liver in the donor will grow back to the size they need, and the liver in the recipient will grow to the size they need. So you can do living donor liver and kidney transplants, absolutely. There's another question. Yes?
How many transplants have you done in your career?
I would say for kidney transplants, probably 500 and maybe 600. Liver transplants, probably 300. When I was in fellowship, we were doing about 120 transplants a year. There weren't a lot of work hour restrictions when you're a fellow. Yeah, another question?
What you said the success rate on a living liver transplant is?
Success for a living donor liver transplant, every program is going to be different. It's probably pretty much close to 100%. Living donor transplants tend to work better simply because they're outside of the body for less time. So like, let's say that I was donating a kidney to someone, they would, like at the end of the month, Thursday, I'm doing a living donor kidney transplant. So I will have that patient in the operating room. I will take out the kidney. My partner who's going to implant the kidney will be next door and already have the exposure. So the organ is out of the body for less period of time. We know the longer the organ is out of the body, the more likely it is to have problems. The other thing is, to be a living donor, you've got to be pretty darn healthy. So the organs themselves are generally pretty healthy, whereas from a deceased donor, you look at the thing. So like if you're somebody who's young, you're 20 and you need a kidney, we're going to try to get you a kidney from somebody that's young. But if you're, say, 65, you might get a kidney from somebody that's 60 to 65, that maybe it's not a Maserati of kidneys, but it might be like a Toyota Corolla. It's going to work just fine and go for 200,000 miles, you know? So the point is, we try to match that. You can't be too picky because we don't have enough organs for everybody that needs them. Any other questions? One more question. Yes? There's not a major difference in those. They basically, so classically, immunocompromised was oftentimes used, I would say, in people associated with other, either genetic defects in the immune system, people that had underlying HIV, those were common times you'd see that. People who are immunosuppressed versus immunocompromised, they're probably very similar in what you'd say. I wouldn't say that someone on transplant, unless they're on extreme immunosuppression, is that suppressed, but certainly in the first year, especially with kidney, we do give medications which destroy most of the memory white cells, the white cells of your cells that fight infection, to try to minimize risk of rejection. Thank you guys for your attention. Nice to talk to you.
Eddie survived prostate cancer, but several months later, while at work, he collapsed from a heart attack. He was rushed to the hospital where he was not conscious until 10 days later. When he woke up, his medical team told him he had received a heart transplant. His daughter, Lauren, who is a student here at William Jewell College, will ask Eddie questions regarding his remarkable story. Please welcome Lauren and Eddie.
So Dad, had you had any serious health problems prior to your heart transplant?
No, I was basically healthy, active, and fit most of my life until 2022 when I was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
So what happened after your prostate cancer? And can you share a little bit about the day you were at work and you passed out?
Well, it was an ordinary day for me. It was around 7 a.m. on a Friday. I went into work for a skills check-off. I was feeling pretty good. About 45 minutes after I was done, I started feeling kind of off. And so I went into the restroom, and that's when I passed out. Then they called EMS. They took me to the nearest local hospital, which was Overland Park Regional, by ambulance. And then when they got me in, settled there, and they realized that my condition was a lot serious than what it really was. So then, from there, I was airlifted by helicopter to a second hospital, and that's when they admitted me into the intensive care unit.
Okay, and what can you remember after you passed out?
Well, I don't remember anything until I woke up 5 days later, and I had, the doctor was standing over me, and he told me that I'm Dr. D, of the KU Medical Center, and he assured me that I was okay, and he told me that my heart was weak, I had a heart transplant, and I also had a heart attack. So then he just started looking at me, with the lights in my eyes, and then he was, I went into shock, because I couldn't believe what he just had told me, So he gave me time to register everything that he said, and then he came to talk to you all, Lauren.
And so how did they determine that you needed a heart transplant?
Well, they never actually told me my heart had failed, but they did tell me that they were going to try a lot of things to help to make my heart better.
What were some of those things that they used that they were going to try and do to get your heart better before you had your heart transplant?
Well, while being in the intensive care unit, they put me on this machine called ECMO. Now, ECMO is an external machine that they use for patients when they're too sick or their hearts or their lungs are just too weak to function. Now, while being on ECMO, I had a stroke, and then I had a seizure also, and then on top of that, they had to put a trach down in my throat, you know, and a trach is just kind of like this tube that they put down through your windpipe, and it acts as an alternative, a way of breathing.
And so while you were waiting for your heart, how long did you have to wait on the heart transplant list before you were given your heart?
Well, I got placed on the list right around like February of 28, no, it was February 28, and I received my heart on March 8th.
Okay. Our family was very scared during this time, but we're so grateful for your donor and their family. Can you tell us anything, or do you know anything about your donor?
Well, all I know is that my donor was young, and I'm hoping to meet the family one day so I can tell them how thankful and grateful I am to have gotten this heart, because when I was younger, I never knew anything about a donor or how donating an organ could actually save one's life. But what I do know is I'm thankful for my donor that I'm able to talk again, walk again, and I got a second chance of life.
After your heart transplant, how did you mentally get through the health challenges, and where did you find the strength to get through?
Well, all the time I was thinking about you, your sister, and my wife, and all the people that surround me that really love me and care for me. So I just kept the faith, and I kept hope, and I kept pushing, and I pushed and pushed until I got through it. So Lauren, it had to be a scary time for you. So explain to the students what you were feeling during this time when all this was happening to your dad.
Yeah, it was really scary, very shocking, especially when you have somebody who's pretty healthy and nothing's really wrong with them, and then you're just at school one day and you get a call and it's like, your dad collapsed at work, your dad had a seizure, your dad's at the hospital now, we need you to get to the hospital, his heart is not working, he's not awake right now. It's really scary. But I was very, very blessed to have a family that sticks together, and we were able to kind of lean on each other emotionally to get through it. Yeah, so I'm happy that you're here with us. So what is your life like now after everything's happened?
Well, these days now, I take less medications now. I drink lots of water. I take care of my body. I have regular doctor's appointments now. I go to therapy like twice a week now. I still have a lot of nerve pain going on inside my body, and I'm still having kind of trouble walking, but I'm getting along. I'm coming along, you know, and therapy is helping me tremendously.
Okay, is there anything else you want the students to know about you?
Well, I love music, you know, and I no longer use a cane, a walker, or a wheelchair, you know, and I'm pushing through day to day. You know, I love my family, you know, and I thank everybody, you know, that was there for me, and I had a great support system, you know, and the doctors really worked with me, you know. So I'm thankful, you know, for my donor, and just remember that whatever you're going through in life, you're never alone. I'll always be praying for you, because you never know what one is going through. So all I know is I'm Glad to be alive. Thank God, and I'm still here.
Kahyley founded Pilates by Kahyley in Kansas City in 2005 with the mission of helping others change their bodies and their lives. Her practice was instrumental in her recovery from a liver transplant. She is nationally recognized for her Pilates knowledge and working with individuals regarding injury prevention and rehabilitation. She works with clients from young athletes to breast cancer survivors to the Kansas City Chiefs. She was given 90 days to live without a new liver. After the short video, she will share her story.
Take a nice cleansing breath in through your nose.
Pilates is a practice in precision and persistence.
Push the air out, pull the abs in.
For Kahyley Schiller, it's a passion.
Passion of helping others, passion of being a teacher and being able to give others what I feel like they need. 7, 6, good.
For the last 18 years, she's shared that passion at her studio in Overland Park.
When you learn the Pilates method, it doesn't just teach you how to become physically stronger, it's also mentally stronger.
Schiller credits that strength with her life.
It's hard, but I know I was supposed to go through it for a reason.
4 years ago, she was diagnosed with end-stage liver failure. Doctors gave her no more than 90 days to live.
Even though there is a tragedy or darkness, that there is still light at the end of it.
Schiller got a transplant that saved her life. Post-surgery, she says Pilates brought her back to health.
I rehabilitated myself through the Pilates method and the core work that we do.
Now, she uses those same methods to help other people. People like Chiefs defensive tackle Tershawn Wharton.
She's going to push you and motivate you.
Wharton has been working with Schiller since his rookie year.
She works those little muscles that we don't really get to as a football players because we're so kind of working everything together.
Good.
After he tore his ACL last season, he says sessions with Schiller helped him get back on the field faster.
She's like a coach to me, like another football coach.
That appreciation is hung up on the wall. Wharton gave Schiller his jersey from the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I gave her a jersey. Somebody that in Kansas City that I really care about and helped me along the way of my path.
Legs together.
A path paved by persistence and practice. And Schiller says she's glad she could share her passion to help.
I feel like we're all supposed to go through things for a reason. Like pain is supposed to, push us beyond our insecurities and help us, especially help others. Good.
In Overland Park, Peyton Headley, KMBC 9 News.
I want to thank you guys all for being here today to take more time out of your day to learn about tissue, eye, and organ donation. The Gift of Life organization is doing incredible things in our community, and because of them, more lives are being saved. I grew up in the Kansas City area and started taking dance at the age of 10. I was on the competitive dance team at my dance studio, and I was the captain of my high school drill team. Being a dancer was all I wanted to be. So when I was accepted at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, as a dance major, I was thrilled. I moved to Las Vegas not knowing a soul, and very excited to make my dancing dreams come true. Being a dance major, you had to take 3 semesters of Pilates. Pilates was demonstrated in that video that was shown before the presentation. Pilates is a full body workout that creates symmetry and balance throughout your body. It also creates strength in your core and your smaller muscles. Shortly after starting college, I developed chronic knee pain and was advised by an orthopedic surgeon to get surgery. I expressed the outcome of this to my Pilates teacher at UNLV, and she said, "You don't need surgery, you need Pilates." So she created a protocol that was Pilates-based for me to do, and it rehabilitated my knees. From there, my heart felt complete, and I knew that Pilates was what I had been searching for. UNLV has a Pilates certification program that I went through. I also became their master teacher trainer. My teacher, Dolly, took me graciously under her wings and gave me the confidence to open my own studio, as well as the experience to grow as an instructor. In 2005, when I was 25 years old, I moved back to Kansas City and opened my own Pilates studio in Overland Park, Kansas. I spent a decade pouring my heart and soul into my studio, and we've grown 3 times. We've moved to three locations because we were accommodating our expansion. I have certified and trained hundreds of Pilates instructors, and then when I was 35, I had my first son, and 3 years later, I had my second. My life was very full and very, very busy. In August of 2019, I started to experience symptoms of fatigue and nausea. At first, I didn't take it very serious because I considered myself to be a healthy and active woman, but the symptoms started to progress and didn't go away. So 3 weeks later, I went to see my doctor. He wasn't concerned either. He said it was possibly something that I was eating and gave me a prescription for anti-nausea medication. 4 days later, my eyes turned bright yellow, which can indicate liver concerns. So I went back to my doctor's office and I demanded that they do blood work. The following day, they called me and told me that my liver enzymes were highly elevated and I needed to go to the closest emergency room immediately. From there, I was sent in an ambulance to the University of Kansas health system. They sent me directly up to the ICU and started to do more labs and a liver biopsy. The following day, they came back and told me that my liver had been damaged 40 to 50%, caused by autoimmune hepatitis. Autoimmune hepatitis is an autoimmune disease that creates issues with liver inflammation and can lead to liver failure. So at the age of 39 years old, I was told that without a liver transplant, I only had 90 days to live. This is when I learned about the MELD score. It's the model for end-stage liver disease. It's a calculator that estimates the survival probability with end-stage liver disease. It consists of 3 things: your INR, which is your International Normalized Ratio. It's a blood test to test the blood clot, to see how fast your blood clots. Also, your serine total bilirubin. It's another blood test to test the amount of bilirubin that is used to assess your liver function. And then lastly, your serine creatinine. It measures the amount of creatinine in your blood to assess how well your kidneys are filtering. The score estimates the risk of death within 90 days without a transplant. My score remained above 25. I spent the next 2 weeks in the hospital undergoing a battery of tests. I met with the liver team and the liver transplant team, and that consisted of surgeons, nurses, hepatologists, dietitians, financial advisors, social workers, and therapists. I also had to undergo medical testing, which consisted of cardiology, my dentist, and gynecologist. The results from all of these tests and my MELD score were presented to the transplant selection committee. And then they decided that I was approved to be on the National Transplant Board. In fact, I was placed number 1 at the University of Kansas Health System. My numbers were stable enough to be discharged and wait at home in the hopes that I would receive a transplant. During that time, my health deteriorated quickly. I went from teaching 25 Pilates classes per week, running my own business, to taking care of my boys, to barely being able to get out of bed. I was on prednisone, and from the liver disease caused me to gain 30 pounds of fluid buildup. My muscles began to wither away, and it took every ounce of my energy just to take a shower. My hopes were high, my spirits were up, but I'm not going to lie and say I wasn't scared. The next few weeks were challenging, but I had a sense of peace from God that everything would work out. We may not all share the same religious beliefs in this room, but I'm sharing with you how I was able to stay grounded and survive this time in my life. Sometimes we have to be brave enough to accept the things that we cannot change, and to trust, and patient enough to trust God's timing. I chose to accept my reality and took the appropriate actions by getting a power of attorney, which is the power that someone can act upon your behalf. And I prepared myself mentally and physically for the surgery and the recovery. My family, friends, instructors, clients were overwhelmingly amazing. My mom and instructors took over the studio, and we had family members to watch our boys. On October 2nd, 2019, I got the call from the hospital that there was a donor matched for me. And what that means is it had the same blood type that I did, and it could also fit my body size. On October 3rd, the following day, was my transplant surgery. Almost immediately, there were near fatal complications. I developed a blood clot that went into my lungs and resulted in a pulmonary embolism. Then the blood clot traveled into my heart, and I have a PFO in my heart, which is a flap, and the flap opened. The blood clot then went into my brain, resulting into 4 minor strokes. And then the blood clot dissipated. They immediately stopped the surgery, took me down to radiology, and inserted an IVC filter to help prevent more blood clots from happening. They kept me sedated for 24 hours to make sure I was okay, and by the grace of God, I woke up the following day and they completed the surgery. My pain level after surgery was unbearable. I had to use my upper body to get up and down. The fluid in my body that had been built up from the prednisone and liver disease very slowly started to decrease. I remained in the hospital for 2 more weeks and was relieved to go home to my family. After my liver transplant surgery, my body was weak. My muscles were depleted. My ability to use my core was completely gone. My lower back was locked up and my entire body was stiff. However, I was absolutely determined to get my strength back and live a life free of disease, pain, and fear. As soon as I arrived home, I began to walk on the treadmill. Very slowly, I started at 2 miles per hour and then increased it eventually to 4 miles per hour. I used light hand weights to build my upper body strength to help encourage my posture because I could not sit up straight. So I was doing that while my abdominal muscles were healing. 8 months after my transplant, my abdominal muscles were healed, and I cannot tell you how exciting that is for a Pilates instructor to be able to feel your abdominals burn again. After this, I started to use Pilates completely to rehabilitate my body. In November of 2019, I felt I was ready to send a letter to my donor's parents. To this day, it was the most challenging letter I have ever written. In January of 2020, my donor's mom wrote back to me, and she included the following about her son. His name was Jason. He was 29 years old. He was an executive chef. He volunteered his summers at a camp with kids who had disabilities. He was proud to be a part of the honor guard, and he was greatly loved. I'm honored that I have a relationship with my donor's parents. We share special times together. Trying to understand why things happen to ourselves and to others is difficult. However, I don't think we get to know why. We just get to see the light that comes from the darkness. The following is what Sharon, Jason's mom, wrote to me. I thank God for taking care of Jason and for bringing you and your family into our lives. He knows how much comfort you have given me, and I pray to him all the time to keep you and your family healthy. If it wasn't for Jason's gift of life and the peace and faith you gave me, I don't think I would have made it. I celebrated my 5-year anniversary on October 3rd of my liver transplant surgery, and I feel stronger than ever despite the numbness that remains below my incision. I have learned how to take better care of myself and not push my body beyond its capabilities. Living a transplant life can be discouraging at times because there's no guarantee on how long the donor or the organ donor will sustain. I take anti-rejection medication to keep my body from rejecting the organ, and to keep the autoimmune hepatitis at bay. I was given a second chance of life, and because of someone's loss, I owe it to myself to take as good a care of myself as possible. The storms we face in life are opportunities for us to grow, to share our story, to help others, and to push us beyond our insecurities. Don't let the things that happen to you define you. I was given 90 days to live, and because of Jason's courageous act, I was given a second chance. Every day is a new opportunity to rise up again. Baby steps soon become giant leaps, and a positive outlook in life soon becomes a light shining bright for all to see. Don't let failure be your final. The ones that get up after endlessly getting knocked down are the ones that will prevail. And these are the 3 things that I live my life by. Keep moving. You have to keep moving, no matter what. You've got to keep moving your body. You've got to keep going, and most importantly, you have to keep believing in yourself. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and introduce our final speaker for the day. So Sylvia is a lifelong educator, a mother of 3. Her son, Chris, was an undercover detective for the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department in the Narcotics Division. She never dreamed that she would ever become a donor mother. Her family honors Chris's legacy and the gift that he gave others. Please welcome Sylvia as she opens her heart to share.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me? Yes? Yes. Okay. So I'd like to thank Gift of Life for giving me this opportunity to go ahead and speak with you guys and be part of this marvelous rally. So thank you very much. So when I heard I was the after lunch speaker, I thought, uh-oh, food coma. Okay. So I'll do my best to go ahead and share my story. I have so much energy I'm feeling from you guys right now. So my name is Sylvia Langhammer, and I am a donor mom. My son Christopher died and became an organ donor. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, I was born and raised in Kansas City. My family lives here. Most of my children still live here. I was like you guys, did all the things I thought I was expected to do. Graduated from high school, went to college, became a teacher, got married, had children. So that was my life. If you do a picture of me, my head would be in a cloud because I was kind of just doing what I thought life was supposed to be like. I had twin daughters, and then 6 years later I had my son Christopher. But as you guys know, you can plan all you want, but life doesn't always do what you expect it to do. And I got a divorce, and I became a single mom in every sense of the word. I supported my children, I supported them emotionally and financially, and that was our life. My 2 daughters had each other. My son Christopher always felt like, where's my twin? He felt more like he had 3 moms because I depended so much on my daughters while I taught, I went to graduate school and tried to do all the other things, be both mom and dad to my family. And that's the way our life was. And we continued in that way. And my children grew up. My daughters all went to college. All my kids went to college. My daughter, April, works in Parkinson's testing of medications over at KU. My daughter, Katie, works for a forestry company. She loves it. She gets to travel. And my son, Christopher, like you already heard, became a policeman in the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. He loved being a police officer. But even more, he loved working undercover narcotics. That was what he was born to do. He loved it. And like wife, he got married. He had 2 stepsons, and he was born with his own son, Oliver. Christopher, my youngest, was the most independent of all my children. He loved, from the earliest of ages, to make people laugh. He would do anything to get you to laugh. He loved his superheroes. Back before you guys were even born, there was Ninja Turtles. We have some of the original Ninja Turtle toys still. He loved Batman, Superman, Wolverine. He would dress up at Halloween time, and he would be Wolverine with all the claws and everything. It doesn't matter if you were DC or Marvel, he loved the superheroes. He loved WWF before it became WWE. The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, those were his guys. And I took him to his first wrestling match. Way out of my comfort zone, but we went. He loved fireworks. He would save his money. His sisters, he would talk them into taking him to the fireworks store down the street, and he would spend as much money as he had on fireworks. He'd come home, and I'm like, I gotta save some of that money, but he didn't. He was the things that made the biggest bang, that's what he bought. He loved it. He loved candy, anything sweet, that was him. And guess what? I had to pay the dentist bills. That wasn't so great. He loved family gatherings. I had a sister who had 3 boys that were about his age, and he just loved being there and bonding with them. He got his first job without telling me. I just came home from work, and he said, I got a job. Kansas City Zoo came to his school, and they were trying to get people to sign up and work at the zoo. So he did that. And when he came home and told me, I was really, really surprised. We had never even talked about him getting a job. But he actually worked there for about 6 years. He didn't tell me when he was going to buy a car. He used his money from the zoo to buy a car. I found out because he needed me to go and sign the papers for him, because he wasn't old enough to do the paperwork. I found out he was smoking when I was cleaning his room, and up on top of the hutch of his bookshelf I found cigarettes. Lots of surprises for me. And when he got his driver's license, he signed up to be an organ donor because that was the grown-up thing to do. He didn't need my permission to do it. He could just do it. So that's what he did. Christopher loved working undercover. If you saw him, you'd probably walk to the other side of the street because he looked pretty scuzzy. But he was a natural. He loved it. He made the streets safer because of the arrests that he made. That people he arrested were very serious charges of state and federal crimes, both with drugs and with weapons. He became the 2019 Missouri Narcotics Officers Association Officer of the Year because in the whole state of Missouri, he made 110 hand-to-hand drug purchases. He got people who sold meth, crack cocaine, powder cocaine, heroin, PCP. He arrested those people and made the streets safer for you and me. But like life again gets in the way, and his wife filed for a divorce. Christopher became clinically depressed. He asked for help. He went to a psychiatric hospital in North Kansas City that provides services for first responders and for veterans. But in February of 2019, school was out. It was one of those stretches where the weather is so cold, and it's like we didn't see the sun for days. The ice on the streets didn't melt. It was just a depressing time. And so he took advantage of that day, and he took he drove. He didn't mind the ice. He drove, picked up his son and his stepsons, and they went out and they had a fun day. They went to Fritz's, they went to Legoland, they went ahead and went to Sky Zone. They had a lot of fun that day. He dropped them off at home at the end of the day. He went to the parking lot of a church here in Liberty and he shot himself in the head. He was rushed to Liberty Hospital. The trauma unit was able to keep him alive on mechanical ventilation, so he was not breathing on his own. 3 days, they tested him and finally told us that he was brain dead. So at 33, 2 weeks before his birthday, Christopher, because he had signed his driver's license to become a registered donor, became an organ donor. Like you heard earlier, being able to meet your donor and recipient families is so important. I have felt to my own healing. And we were so blessed and lucky, exceedingly fortunate that we have been able to meet the recipients of his organs. And I would like to introduce them to you. Carla, in the picture on the right, sent me a card 2 weeks after he had died, and she received her kidney, and said, thank you so much. Carla was 48 and she was living in Colorado. She had kidney failure due to a disease. And I have never met a more gracious and thankful person. If you remember what Dr. Matt said, he talked about hemodialysis, where you are hooked up to a machine that's going to filter your blood through your kidneys. She was on that machine for 10 years. 10 years, a whole decade of her life. She had to go through hemodialysis in order to survive. She spent 1,546 days. Think about that. 1,546 days she spent on the transplant list waiting for a kidney. 2 times she had gone to the hospital because she had been told, we've got a kidney match for you. She'd get to the hospital, and when they would complete their testing, they found out that it wasn't a good match. So she had to go home. She told me that when she got that call, that they had a kidney, my son's kidney for her, she almost didn't go to the hospital. She said, I can't take it. I can't go with my hopes up and then find out that I do not have a kidney. But she went. And she said the longer she waited at the hospital, the more hopeful she became. And her mother, who was at the hospital with her, heard the helicopter bringing my son's kidney to her, and she went out to see it. Carla got her kidney. I met her 2 years ago. I went to a wedding. My niece had a destination wedding in Colorado, so I kind of started looking, oh my gosh, Carla only lives 10 minutes from where the hotel is that we're staying. So I said, hell yes, we're making this happen. So we contacted Carla and we got together and I got to meet her. She tells me, she gets up every morning, she gives her kidney a little pat and says, good morning, Christopher. Another thing that Carla told me is, and I never thought about this, she had to learn how to pee again. I never even thought about that, but she said, oh yeah. She says, I guess, I don't know, if you have a kidney issue like she had, it filtered everything. She said, I had to learn how to pee. Okay, interesting. Okay, the picture on the left is Tyson. Tyson was 33 years old and lived in Ohio. Tyson did his own investigation because there's a process. They just don't want you to try and find out who got your kidneys and stuff. So there's a process you have to follow to make sure that everybody stays safe and nothing crazy goes on. But Tyson didn't follow that. He actually did some investigating on his own, and he tracked down my daughters through Facebook. And he contacted them and said, hey, I think I have your brother's heart. And they said, prove it. And so he actually had a letter I had written to all his recipients, telling them a little bit about my son. And that's how they knew it really was him. Tyson drove 2 days with his family to Kansas City so that I could meet him. I'm not sure I would have done it this way, but we met at a restaurant. And I got to hear my son's heart for the first time, beating for somebody else. Tyson damaged his heart beyond its ability to function because he drank too many energy drinks. He had a business where he worked in landscaping. He had a family to try and keep up with business and family and everything. He drank a lot of energy drinks. So just keep that in mind. As a mom, I'm going to tell you everything in moderation. But because of those energy drinks, he almost died. Okay. The next one is Walt. Well, you can look at the picture and figure out, I met Walt during COVID. Walt was 57. He got a kidney and a liver from my son. He suffered from a disease that caused inflammation of his liver and kidney failure. He was so sick, he was almost taken off the transplant list. But he did get the organs that he needed. We met over breakfast during COVID. He's married, he's retired, and he has a new life now in Tennessee. My son gave both of his lungs to another young man. We do not know who he is, but his mother has contacted us. His mother, Paulette, tells me her son is quiet, kind, caring, and humble. He suffered from a disease that made it impossible for him to do the simplest activities. He could not walk across the room or across the stage like I'm doing without being tethered to oxygen. He couldn't do anything. But now, because he has my son's lungs, he can ride bikes, he can go hiking, he loves to swim, he loves to hunt, which is really funny to me and my daughters because Christopher would never have done any of those things. He would have rather gone to a movie and watched superheroes or play video games. So someday I hope to be able to meet this young man so that I can see and think about Christopher's lungs having all of those adventures and journeys. Christopher could not give his pancreas because, you remember what Dr. Matt said, sometimes they are scarred. He had a fatty pancreas. And I say he had a fatty pancreas because he had a policeman's diet, too many fast foods. He donated his corneas. One of his corneas actually went to a gentleman in Egypt, and the other cornea went to a gentleman in South Africa. My son gave grafts of skin, bone, and connective tissues that improved the lives of 56 other people. Being an organ donor family, being a donor mom is not anything I ever would have chosen. It's a path I never thought I would have walked. My son has been dead 5.5 years now. Not a day goes by that I don't think about him and all the joy he brought us and the life that he gave these other people. But I have a grandson who doesn't remember his dad. I have daughters who no longer have a brother, and no parent should ever have to bury their child. My son was a good man, and he was a good cop. I don't want how he died to be how he is remembered, but I want it to be how he lived. And the decisions that he made to register as an organ donor that gave 4 different people new life and improved the quality of life for almost 60 other people. So as I leave today, I want to share his heartbeat with you that was recorded by Midwest Transplant. They are an organization that guides families through the donation process when they are in the hospital. They stood by our side the entire time, and we are most grateful for them. And when I listened to it, I listened to the heartbeat of a hero who made the brave decision to register as an organ donor when he was just about your age. And he changed lives forever, and perhaps you will too. Thank you very much.
What a powerful story, right? Please give her another round of applause. It is so brave to be so vulnerable. And I encourage each and every one of you, because I know each of you have a story today in your own way. Don't be afraid to share that vulnerability, because it can become a lesson to another one that's in your life. I want to thank Sylvia for sharing her story. I am grateful to her for opening her heart to all of us in this room. You've probably seen me running around as your photographer today, but also, my name is Luke Harbur. And when I was 11 months old, I received a life-saving liver transplant. I was born with underdeveloped bile ducts, which help drain the toxins from my body. And when this happens, the liver can begin to shut down. I was given 2 years to live without a transplant. Now, the picture that would be on the screen, right here, the picture that is on the screen, it was taken at Children's Mercy Hospital in 1996, just 2 weeks after my transplant. I am pictured with my brother Cole, my mom, and my dad. And I am alive today because of that little boy on the right side of the screen. Aaron Drake died from an allergic reaction while on a family vacation in Lake of the Ozarks. He was just 8 years old. And because his family said yes to organ donation, I was able to graduate from high school, study abroad in London, England while I was in college. I actually graduated from high school, from college, woohoo! And I graduated from college with a degree in journalism. I travel a lot, and truly I live a very full life. So, I would like to shift the mood a bit in the room. If you'd like to get out your cell phones, you are welcome. I am a professional songwriter and performer, and one of the things that I do is beatboxing. So, before I dismiss you all today, think of this as a very small way of saying thank you for your time and attention. I have been beatboxing now for 19 years. I started when I was 10 years old. So just like all of you have the power to be vulnerable and tell your story, if there is something you're passionate about, please chase it like I have. because you might get to live a life and share a talent that goes a little bit like this. My name is Skippy, and you're listening to Music by Skippy. Yo, skip, skip! I know. Looks can be very deceiving. Do not judge a book by its cover. That said, now while your phones are out, we actually have something for you to do next. So please follow instructions right here that are now on the screen. Go to menti.com. That's MENTI.com, and enter the code on the screen. If you don't have access to that code, I am reading 6719097. Reflecting on all you experienced today, please do your best to summarize the Lifesavers Rally in one word and enter it now on your phone. You can also scan the code in order to get to the website. We're going to go to the next slide. Watch as you enter the words. They shall pop up on the screen.
We hope you have been educated about donation, inspired difference in your school community, and encouraged to share your decision about donation with a loved one. Thank you for attending the 2024 Lifesavers Rally, and you are dismissed.